Receptionist humiliates Keanu Reeves, not knowing he owns the hotel. Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more incredible stories. It was a chilly October evening in 2019 when Keanu Reeves strolled into the lobby of a high-end boutique hotel in Los Angeles. With his trademark laid-back style, black blazer and jeans, he appeared no different from any other tired traveler stopping by for a stay. What no one realized, however, was that this wasn't just another guest. Keanu owned the hotel. It was a project close to his heart, a place he'd envisioned as a haven of warmth and hospitality. But on this particular night, the atmosphere he'd worked so hard to cultivate was far from welcoming. "Excuse me, sir," barked the receptionist, a sharply dressed woman in her early 30s named Amanda. Her tone was clipped as she added, "Do you even have a reservation? We don't let just anyone walk in here." Keanu, maintaining his usual calm, raised an eyebrow and responded softly, "Actually, I do." He reached for his phone to show her the confirmation email, but Amanda barely hid her disdain. She muttered under her breath, loud enough for nearby guests to catch. "People like you think you can just show up at places like this," she sneered. "This isn't some budget motel." Other guests in the lobby began to notice the exchange. Keanu handed her his phone with the reservation details displayed, but Amanda didn't even bother to look closely. She scoffed, "This hotel isn't for everyone. We cater to an elite crowd, celebrities, CEOs, people who can actually afford it. Maybe you should try somewhere else." Nearby, a couple seated by the fireplace, Emily and David, a pair of high school sweethearts celebrating their anniversary, couldn't help but overhear. Emily leaned toward David and whispered, "Isn't that Keanu Reeves? He really looks like him." David squinted. "No way. Why would he be here?" Back at the desk, Amanda continued her lecture, completely unaware of the uncomfortable silence that had settled over the room. "We have a certain reputation to maintain," she said with a condescending smile. "If you don't belong, I suggest you find someplace more suitable." Keanu finally broke his silence, his voice calm yet commanding. "Is this how you treat all your guests?" Amanda smirked, replying smugly, "Only the ones who clearly don't fit in." As Amanda reached for the phone to call security, a voice interrupted her. "Amanda," said James, the hotel manager, stepping into the lobby. His face turned ghostly white the moment he saw Keanu. "What are you doing?" James demanded, his voice edged with urgency. Amanda, puzzled by his reaction, replied curtly, "I'm dealing with a situation," gesturing dismissively toward Keanu. James rushed over, panic and disbelief etched into his face. "That's not just a guest," he said, his voice trembling. "That's Mr. Reeves. He owns this hotel." The lobby fell into a heavy silence. Amanda's face turned ashen as she grasped the gravity of his words. Keanu remained composed, letting the silence carry the weight of the truth. Across the room, Emily and David exchanged wide-eyed glances. Their quiet evening had unexpectedly turned into a story they'd remember forever. Emily leaned closer to David and whispered, "I knew it was him." As Amanda stuttered out an apology, Keanu did something no one anticipated. James, sensing the importance of Keanu's next move, stepped aside nervously, watching as the moment unfolded. Amanda stood motionless, her confidence crumbling as shame and fear flickered in her eyes. Around them, the guests looked on in stunned silence, the tension in the air almost tangible. Taking a deep breath, Keanu looked directly at Amanda. His voice was calm but firm. "I believe in kindness," he began. "It's the foundation of what we built here. Everyone deserves respect, no matter where they come from or how they appear." Amanda's lips quivered, and her eyes filled with tears as the weight of her actions sank in. She choked out, "Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry." Keanu didn't respond immediately. Instead, he scanned the room, meeting the eyes of the onlookers. He noticed Emily and David by the fireplace, their faces full of admiration and quiet hope. For a brief moment, his gaze softened. Then, with raw emotion, he said, "I wasn't always someone who could afford a place like this. There was a time I didn't know where my next meal would come from, let alone where I'd sleep. That's why I wanted this hotel to be different, a place where everyone feels welcome no matter who they are." Emily and David exchanged a heartfelt glance. They had read about Keanu's struggles, the loss of his girlfriend and their unborn child, the death of his close friend, River Phoenix, and his sister's battle with leukemia, but hearing him share these feelings in person was deeply moving. Amanda, overwhelmed by guilt, broke down, her tears flowing freely. "I don't know what I was thinking," she whispered. "I let my pride and judgment get the better of me. Please forgive me." Keanu nodded slightly, but didn't offer forgiveness right away. Instead, he said, "Words are easy. It's actions that matter. The way you treat others when no one's looking is what defines you." James stepped forward, visibly shaken but resolute. "Mr. Reeves," he said, "I take full responsibility for what happened tonight. This doesn't reflect who we are. I promise things will change." Keanu acknowledged him with a small nod, but kept his focus on Amanda. "The world needs more kindness," he said quietly, "and it begins with us." Emily, unable to hold back her tears, leaned into David and whispered, "It's amazing how someone who's endured so much pain can still choose to be kind." As Keanu was about to leave the lobby, a young boy clutching his mother's hand cautiously approached him. The child, barely 8 years old, had been sitting quietly with his family in the corner, observing everything. "Mr. Reeves," the boy said, his voice quivering slightly. Keanu crouched down to meet the boy's gaze, his tone kind and warm. "Hey there, little guy," he replied gently. The boy hesitated, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. "My dad used to watch your movies with me," the boy said softly, his words carrying the weight of loss. "Before he went to heaven, he always told me you were the nicest person in Hollywood. I think he was right." Keanu's eyes glistened as he carefully unfolded the paper. It was a simple drawing of a superhero, with the boy's handwriting scrawled at the top, "To Mr. Reeves, the real superhero." The room grew quiet once more, not in shock this time, but in reverence. Moved, Keanu gently hugged the boy and whispered, Your dad must have been an incredible man. Thank you for sharing this with me. It means more than you know." Nearby, Emily and David wiped their eyes, the moment leaving an indelible mark on their anniversary. Keanu rose to his feet and addressed the room, his voice calm yet firm. "This place isn't about luxury or prestige, it's about people. Let's never lose sight of that." He gave the boy a soft pat on the shoulder before turning to his mother, who stood nearby with tears streaming down her face. She mouthed a silent thank you, overwhelmed by the profound moment her son had just experienced. Amanda, still shaken from her earlier actions, watched as Keanu interacted with the boy. Something inside her shifted. Her tears weren't just from regret, but from a deep ache she had ignored for years. She'd spent so much time trying to prove herself in high society that she'd forgotten the value of genuine human connection. Keanu's earlier words echoed in her mind. How you treat people when no one's watching is what defines you. As the boy and his mother began to walk away, Keanu called out, "Wait!" His voice was steady, yet tinged with emotion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn keychain from one of his movie sets. It was old, its surface scratched, but it gleamed faintly in the soft lobby light. "Your dad must have been an amazing man," Keanu said, kneeling again to meet the boy's eyes. "I want you to have this. It's from a movie I made a long time ago. It's not much, but maybe it'll remind you that heroes come in all shapes and sizes." The boy's eyes widened as he accepted the gift, his small hands trembling. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Keanu smiled faintly, though the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. As the boy and his mother exited through the revolving doors, Keanu's gaze lingered on them until they were gone. Emily leaned closer to David and murmured, "He carries so much. You can see it in his eyes." David nodded. "But look how he uses it. He turns his pain into something beautiful." Keanu returned to the front desk where Amanda stood nervously twisting her hands. She opened her mouth to apologize, but he raised a hand to stop her. "I'm not interested in apologies," he said gently. "I'm interested in change." Amanda nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'll do better, I promise." Keanu offered a small nod, his expression softening. "We all make mistakes. It's what we do after that matters." Just then, the soft notes of a piano began to fill the room. An older man, in his 70s, who had been quietly sitting at the hotel bar, had wandered over to the grand piano. His fingers moved across the keys with surprising grace, playing a hauntingly beautiful rendition of Clair de Lune. Keanu turned toward the music, a look of recognition lighting up his face. The man, whose name tag read George Maintenance, seemed completely lost in the melody, unaware of the spell he was casting over the room. Keanu walked up to the piano, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. As George finished the melody, Keanu clapped gently, drawing the older man's attention. George looked up, surprised. "That was beautiful," Keanu said, his tone kind and sincere. "How long have you been playing?" George chuckled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Longer than I've been fixing pipes, I can tell you that. My wife loved this song. I used to play it for her every evening before she passed." Keanu's face grew even gentler. "She must have felt so cherished," he said. George's smile was faint, but full of emotion, his eyes shimmering. "I was the lucky one." A quiet pause settled over the room, heavy with reflection. Keanu rested a comforting hand on George's shoulder. "Thank you for sharing that," he said softly. George nodded, his voice tight with feeling. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves, not just for listening, but for truly seeing people." Keanu stepped back, George's words echoing in his mind. He glanced around the lobby. Amanda, Emily, and David sat nearby. A boy and his mother stood just outside the glass doors. George remained by the piano. The weight of it all, grief, love, hope, pressed on him, almost overwhelming. Yet amidst the sorrow, there was undeniable beauty. Turning to face everyone, Keanu spoke with quiet determination. "The hardest part of being human is carrying the pain of everything you've lost," he said. "But that's also what makes love so powerful. It's what keeps us going." Emily, her tears now falling freely, reached for David's hand, their anniversary taking on new significance. Across the room, Amanda wiped her eyes, silently vowing never to let someone feel overlooked again. Meanwhile, Keanu, still clutching the boy's drawing, moved toward the elevators. His steps were soft, his presence understated, but the room he left behind was forever changed. As the elevator doors closed, silence lingered in the lobby, an unspoken connection binding everyone who had experienced the moment. Amanda sank into a chair, her hands covering her face. She had never felt so vulnerable, yet something deep within her stirred, a yearning to be better, to reclaim the compassion she'd misplaced along the way. Emily and David sat quietly by the fire, holding hands, their hearts heavy, yet full. "Do you think people realize how much pain he carries?" Emily asked shakily. David shook his head. "Probably not. They see the actor, the celebrity. They don't see the man who's had to rebuild himself again and again." Upstairs, Keanu entered his suite, a space designed for comfort and elegance. Yet to him, it felt empty. He set the boy's drawing on the desk by the window, staring at it for a long moment. The words on the page echoed in his mind. "My dad says you're the nicest person in Hollywood." Keanu slowly sank into a chair, his hands trembling as they hovered over the paper. His thoughts drifted to his own father, who had left when he was just a child. No matter how much he accomplished or how far he went, that void never fully disappeared. And then there was Jennifer, the love of his life, the one who should have been sitting beside him, laughing at life's oddities and sharing stories of the people they met. Her absence was a scar that never truly healed, yet he carried her memory everywhere, letting it guide him in honoring the love they had shared. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. "Come in," he said, his voice raw. James, the manager, stepped in, worry etched on his face. "Mr. Reeves, I just wanted to check on you. I know tonight was a lot." Keanu offered a faint smile. "It's all right, James. I'm okay." But James wasn't so sure. He hesitated before speaking again. "You know, when we started this hotel, you said something that stayed with me ever since. You told me people don't come here just for the rooms or fancy perks. They come because they're searching for connection, for a moment that reminds them life is worth living." Keanu nodded, his gaze drifting somewhere far away. James softened his voice as he continued. "Tonight, you gave everyone in that lobby a moment like that, even Amanda, especially Amanda." Keanu chuckled lightly, though his eyes betrayed unspoken emotion. "Let's hope she takes it to heart." James stepped closer, his tone earnest. "You're not just the owner of this place, Keanu. You're its soul. Whether you see it or not, you're giving people something they'll carry long after they leave." Keanu looked at James, his throat tight with emotion. "Sometimes I wonder if I have anything left to give," he confessed quietly. James shook his head firmly. "You have more to give than most ever will. It's because you know what it's like to lose. You've been through it, and you've turned it into something that helps others heal." Keanu didn't answer, but his silence spoke louder than words. That night, as the hotel quieted and the city lights sparkled outside, he sat at his desk, the boy's drawing still in front of him. Picking up a pen, he wrote a simple note on the back of the paper. "To the boy who reminded me that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Thank you for being mine tonight." Carefully folding the paper, he placed it in an envelope. The next morning, he handed it to the front desk with instructions to deliver it to the boys' room before checkout. Downstairs, Amanda arrived early, her eyes red from a sleepless night. James greeted her with a warm smile and a steaming cup of coffee. "You're here early," he said, handing it to her. She nodded, her voice trembling. "I want to start fresh. I need to." James studied her, then gave an encouraging nod. "Then let's make today count." As Amanda took her spot at the front desk, the lobby began to fill with the morning rush. Guests hurried by, some off to meetings, others enjoying coffee and pastries. In the midst of the bustle, Amanda noticed the boy and his mother heading toward the doors. The boy held the envelope tightly, his face glowing with happiness. Suddenly, he stopped and turned back, his eyes scanning the room until they found Amanda. He waved, a small but genuine gesture of forgiveness. Amanda felt a lump in her throat and waved back, a tear slipping down her cheek. In that moment, She realized it wasn't just Keanu who had given the boy a gift. The boy had given all of them a chance to be better. Upstairs, Keanu sat by the window watching the city awaken. The boy's words and drawing were etched forever in his heart. As the boy and his mother crossed the street, the morning sun bathed the city in golden light. Clutching the envelope like a precious treasure, he smiled up at his mother. "I told you, Mom," he said, his voice brimming with wonder. "He's a real superhero." Inside, Amanda discreetly wiped her tears and returned to work with a quiet determination. She resolved to embody the same kindness Keanu had shown her, even when she didn't deserve it. James noticed the shift in her demeanor, the warmth in her greetings, and the sincerity in her actions. He knew Keanu's words had truly taken root. Upstairs, Keanu stood quietly by the window, the city stretching endlessly before him. His eyes followed the boy and his mother until they vanished into the bustling crowd below. His chest felt weighted, yet for the first time in weeks, a faint sense of calm flickered within him. He thought about the boy's drawing, the words written in uneven childlike handwriting, "To Mr. Reeves, the real superhero." It wasn't the first time someone had referred to him as a hero. Fans often did, moved by his roles on screen or the whispers of his quiet generosity. But hearing it from a child, especially a boy who had lost his father, struck him deeply. It brought back memories of his own struggles, the times when he had yearned for someone to look up to, and the pain that came when there was no one to lean on. He let out a long breath, the weight of old wounds pressing down on him like a familiar ache. Memories of Jennifer surfaced, her laughter, her ambitions, the life they had planned but never lived. He thought about his sister's battle with leukemia, the helplessness he had felt as she fought so bravely. Despite the heartache, he was still here, still moving forward, still trying to make sense of it all. He crossed the room to a small safe and opened it. Inside were pieces of his past, a photo of Jennifer, a bracelet from his sister, and a worn book cherished by his late friend, River Phoenix. Carefully, he placed the boy's drawing between the pages of the book, as if it belonged there, among the fragments of his history. As he locked the safe, his phone buzzed. A message from James appeared. "Thank you for last night. You reminded us why we're here. Amanda asked me to tell you she's ready to change. I think we all are." Keanu's lips curved into a faint smile as he replied simply, "Kindness is a ripple. Let's keep it going." Later, as he prepared to leave the hotel, he stopped briefly in the lobby. The staff had gathered, their faces a mix of gratitude and hope. Amanda stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Reeves," she began, her voice quivering but genuine, "I just wanted to say thank you, not just for last night, but for giving me another chance. I won't waste it." Keanu met her gaze steadily. "It's not about perfection," he said. "It's about trying to be better than we were yesterday. Keep going." The crisp autumn air greeted him as he stepped outside, blending into the rhythm of the busy streets. For a moment, he felt like just another person in the crowd, a feeling he quietly treasured. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick note before sliding it back into his pocket. Sometimes, the smallest gestures reveal the greatest truths. Kindness matters. Love heals. And even in the darkest moments, we can be a light for someone else. As he walked away, the boy's drawing and words lingered in his mind. It was a reminder that heroes weren't confined to movie screens. They lived in small, quiet acts of compassion that bridged one heart to another. And perhaps in spite of everything he had lost, Keanu realized he hadn't lost his ability to give, to love, to care. And sometimes that was enough.